This woman was once the matriarch of a sprawling estate, surrounded by wealth and influence. Now, as she hits the ground in front of a ruined mud hut, she possesses nothing but the clothes on her back. It raises a difficult question. How does an individual reach the absolute peak of social security, only to watch every single asset they acquired vanish? We are witnessing the final stage of a cycle, where the very relationships that ensure survival are discarded once they appear to lose their utility. To sever those ties is to dismantle the only floor beneath you. To understand how she engineered her own destruction, we have to look back to the extreme circumstances that first pulled her out of poverty. Years before the mansion, a massive rainstorm trapped a homeless beggar named Fulmati miles from any village. She was elderly, alone, and shivering in the freezing downpour. Seeking any shelter, she stumbled into a small, fragile mud hut. Inside was Kajli, a young orphan surviving in total isolation. This diagram shows the process of two isolated points of survival merging. In an environment with no money or property, the tether of emotional debt becomes the only resource these two have left to trade. They shared a fire and a single piece of bread. Through that deprivation, they forged a bond of familial loyalty that replaced the family they had both lost. Loyalty forged at absolute zero creates a safety net that material wealth cannot replicate. This connection was the foundation of Kajli's life, and eventually it would be the target of her own ego. Years later, Kajli's circumstances changed. She married into a wealthy family and moved to a distant village, cutting all ties with her past life. This scale tracks Kajli's shifting priorities. As she accumulates material assets, the weight of her new status pulls the tether of her original connection dangerously taut. To maintain this new life, she built a wall of social status until the connection was effectively erased. Fulmati, however, remained loyal. Believing her surrogate daughter was still part of her life, the old woman began a long, pained journey on foot to find the distant village where Kajli now lived. She carried a small bundle containing a few dry rotis and a brand new sari, a gift she had saved for years, waiting for the day they would reunite. Fulmati arrived at the mansion expecting a shared history to be honored, but Kajli operated in a world where history was a liability. The two women finally met at the gates of the estate. Fulmati stood there, dust-covered, while Kajli looked down from her high balcony, heavily adorned in expensive gold jewelry. Kajli recognized her old surrogate mother immediately, but to maintain her wealthy image, she feigned ignorance, publicly asking who this old beggar was. When Fulmati held out the cheap, saved sari to prove who she was, Kajli saw an immediate threat to her social standing. In the eyes of her new circle, this gift was a marker of the shame she had spent years burying. Kajli snatched the sari and threw it into the dirt. She insulted the woman who raised her, ordering her servants to drag her away. By discarding Fulmati, Kajli convinced herself she was finally secure. In reality, she had just destroyed the only person whose loyalty was not dependent on her bank account. The security Kajli thought she had bought proved to be a facade. A series of failed investments and high-interest debts quickly drained the family's wealth. This map shows the collapse of her social network. These connections were purely transactional. When the money stopped flowing, the nodes vanished, leaving Kajli at the center with zero support. The mansion was seized by creditors. Her husband's family scattered. Within months, the jewelry and the status were gone. Kajli found herself back on the same roads Fulmati once traveled, holding out a wooden bowl and begging for scraps of bread. She traded a permanent safety net for a series of short-term transactions. When the money vanished, the people vanished with it, exactly as the terms of those transactions dictated. Driven by desperation and guilt, Kajli walked back to the village of her youth, hoping to find the one woman she had treated as a liability. She reached the clearing where her old home stood, only to find the structure had completely rotted away. A local villager told her that Fulmati had never returned from her journey to the city years ago. No one knew where she had gone after being chased from the mansion. Kajli was left screaming for forgiveness in an empty field, realizing that the one person she needed was gone because of her own hand. Status is a temporary condition. If you discard the people who care for you when you have nothing, you will find yourself with no one to turn to when the cycle eventually brings you back to the start.